Hello, and welcome to Blockchange Solidarity, the podcast where we ask what blockchain can do for us. What is blockchain? What is crypto? Could it rescue us from our current dystopia? Come with us as we explore the very real potential to enhance human freedom, and as we delve into the darker side, predicting the Bond villain potential of this current bleeding edge. Join us, a group of friends, in a pub style as we discuss the overlaps between this technology and politics, economics, the environment, culture, and sci-fi, to understand for ourselves the seemingly mysterious futuristic world on our horizon. Boom. Bang, bang. Welcome back to another episode of Blockchange Solidarity, everyone. This is episode 2 in our series of crime, fraud, scams, dystopia that we created 2 weeks ago, the anti-crypto fraud squad within Blockchange. If you'd listened last week, we covered SafeMoon with Mel and Kyle. This week we've got Luke. Kyle's only able to join, but we've got Luke, who's been following this FTX thing for a while. Of course, we've got Mel back. He's going to give us some insights into FTX as well from her perspective. This is just so interesting. This has been all over the crypto world for fucking weeks now. I'm sure everyone has heard about it, so it doesn't need a hell of a lot of introduction. But Luke has been in and around crypto for quite some time. And he's like a dog sniffing out these scams. So we're going to continue this series. And then, as we said last week, we're going to do one episode every 2 weeks on the lighter side of crypto, the nice side, if you like, and then the corresponding episode every second ep on the darker side. So thanks for following along, everyone. I hope you're enjoying these. That last ep that we did on SafeMoon was so interesting to do. And yeah, got a really good response. It's one of the most bloody obvious crypto scams out there. So this week we're tackling FTX, Sam Bankman-Fried, or Scam Bankman-Fried, as some people have called him, and everything around this whole thing. I'm sure everyone's watching it, everyone's following it. It is just endless. It's like you keep pulling on this thread and it's like unravels everywhere. So we're going to try and cover some of it. It's just a constantly moving story. So if you're listening to this episode in a few days, a week, bear in mind that there might be new information coming out all the time. But anyway, let's get stuck in. Luke, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, man. Happy to be here.
Cool. And tell everyone where you're based at the minute. Where are you speaking to us from? What part of the beautiful world are you in?
At the moment, I'm sitting in a stairwell in a hotel in Bariloche, Argentina.
Bariloche, everyone.
Loving it here.
That's Patagonia, right?
It is.
Beautiful Patagonia. And Mel, of course, everyone, as you heard last week, is Argentinian as well. She's in the beautiful city of Buenos Aires. How's Buenos Aires today, Mel?
Good, but extremely cloudy, and I think most people are sort of anxious because of the match.
Oh,
so,
yeah, right.
Yeah,
that's right. I just got back from the bar. So I'm in Ilha Grande, which is a beautiful little island outside Rio. And they had the French. It was just like an hour ago. I was watching the French match over a beer by the seaside. So yeah, and Argentina, of course, played tonight against Poland. Everyone's super nervous. Do you guys have to win that?
I think so.
Yeah, because you lost against what was it you lost?
So yeah. I think that it wouldn't change positions because we are second right now.
Okay.
And Poland is first. However, the issue is that we do have to go up in the position. Otherwise, on the next stage, we will play against France.
Okay.
And that could be hell.
Okay. I have to say, I am so impressed by Lionel Messi. Not to get into this too much, but the way he scored that goal and the way he led that team in that last game, it just shows that he's the best player of all time. I think he always steps up and delivers. So let's hope and pray Argentina win tonight. And let's hope and pray, at least for me, that Brazil win the overall final. You guys probably aren't going to like that, Mel. You're going to hate me, but I'm going for Brazil because I'm in Brazil. But I would love an Argentina-Brazil final, eh?
Yeah, a lot of people are thinking of that. A lot of people are thinking that or against England. That's something else that a lot of
That
people want
that could
to.
be
Yeah.
monumental. And of course, Australia. Luke is Australian. Everyone, if you haven't heard already, and they were playing today. They were on the TV as well. They're playing Denmark. I don't know what actually. Are you following that, Luke?
Not at all. I don't watch soccer, but actually, I'm behind Argentina. So after this podcast, I'm going to get myself to a bar that looks like a good vibe, and yeah, we're going to go Argentina. But obviously, go Australia.
Yeah, exactly. So everyone listening, bear in mind for this podcast episode is fun. It's interesting for everyone, but we are in a rush because that match starts pretty soon after we're done with this. So if this seems a bit rushed, we don't mean it to, but the World Cup's important as well because we all want to get that far and have a beer. So let's bounce in there. Luke, you put a bit of a structure about how we want to do this. Why don't we just launch into it? Who is this guy, SBF? Who is this curly-haired creepo? Tell us a little about what you've learned about this dude.
Well, you said most of it right there. He's a bit of a nerdy creepo. He's 30 years old, and you know, being 30, there's not a huge Wikipedia page before FTX. I guess what's more interesting is his family and his brother. He's well connected. His parents are both professors at Stanford Law School, and also they are quite linked with the Democrat Party, which I believe we'll get into later in the episode.
Right.
Yeah, but he himself, he graduated from MIT with a BA in physics and a minor in mathematics. And before MIT, he did a lot of math camp stuff. So we could say that he's pretty good at maths, even though he didn't show it in his running of FTX. After graduating,
Yeah.
he began trading ETS for a trading firm called Jane Street Capital. He left there in 2017 to work at the Center for Effective Altruism, which I think is extremely funny in hindsight.
God, it sounds very nefarious, isn't it? The Center for Effective Altruism. You know, it's one of these sort of front organization sounding things, like the Center for this or that. You know, and it's just it always makes me queasy. Anyway, go on.
Yeah, like if you have to keep saying you're an effective altruist, yeah, it says a lot about you, to be honest.
Right.
But yeah, as a 30-year-old, that's all we really have on him. Yeah, and then in 2017, 2018, he started FTX.
And just picking up on one point, you said both of his parents, because I think this is really important to just get an understanding of who he is, what's his circle around him. It was my understanding that one of them, his parents, is the professor at Stanford, and the other is head of the economics department at MIT. Is that what you found? I could be wrong with that, but because I think his dad is actually head of department at MIT, and was the boss for Gary Gensler, who is the current financial regulator of the SEC, the head of the SEC in the US. So that's also been a massive what's going on there, you know? So there's all the people listening to this. There's all sorts of weird ties, you know, to this. But yeah, is that. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they're both professors at at Stanford as well. But I'd understood one's at Stanford, one's at MIT.
Yeah, I know they're both at Stanford, but that doesn't mean they're not moonlighting somewhere else. That's the field of academics, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah, you're here, you're there, you're everywhere.
Important. Maybe the overall important point is that these are just well-connected family, right? As you said, straight in there with the elites, and the parents are somewhat compliancy and all that. There, isn't it? They're focused on compliance or compliance lawyers or ethics or something like that as well, isn't it?
Yeah, the dad is definitely in tax compliance. He's done a bunch there, and I believe the mom too is something to do with compliance.
Right,
for sure, which is obviously hella funny in hindsight.
Hella funny, hella crazy as we unveil this bloody story for everyone. But this guy worked at Jane Street Capital, wasn't a big shot with a massive career behind him, and so he started FTX just off the back of that, and got got a few people from Jane Street to join him, I believe. So what is FTX for everyone then? Well, let's see. So we're on to that. What exactly is FTX?
FTX, they started out as, well, he says, and obviously what he says is extremely suspect, but he says that he noticed a good arbitrage opportunity, and and that's pretty much the genesis of FTX. He's like, oh well, the Japan price is much different from the American. I can start this exchange, and I can make 25 million a day just fixing up that arbitrage. I'm suspect because his basic business model was lie to investors and get their money. So sounds to me a little bit too good to be true that you just noticed this $25 million a day arbitrage opportunity. But that's how SPF describes the start of FTX.
Right.
For sure.
So just for the audience, maybe who aren't so clued up on these financial terms, basically, I think arbitrage means he saw that the price of Bitcoin in one country on an exchange was different from the price of Bitcoin in another country on an exchange, and he could find the differences between them and a buy and sell and make money off that essentially. And that's it seems too good to be true. Like, how did he see this? How did this curly haired bop from nowhere basically see this opportunity, and none of the other smartest people in the world saw this? It seems a bit sort of what was really going on here. But anyway, that's maybe how he says he got a start anyway. And so this was he set up this exchange to just do that, and so that was the start of it. How did the FTX grow from that then? Did it immediately become an exchange where everyone could buy any crypto, or what was the development there?
Oh, they jump straight into being fully successful. Like everything in crypto, it happens super quick. So yeah, once they started, they were almost very quickly the top 3 exchange in crypto. They had a super quick success for sure.
Wow, yeah, because these crypto is so new, isn't it? Really, so like you get involved in this space, you could find yourself top of the tree like so damn quickly. This is the rapid speed of this, and this how and for anyone listening might be familiar with, like, say, Binance is the other big one, isn't it? I can't really think off the top of my head what other names of.
Yeah, it's the main one.
It's
right
number
now.
one, isn't it? Yeah. What's the other big crypto exchanges? Can anyone?
You got Coinbase, you got Crypto.com.
Right.
These guys have got their foot in the US, which so does Binance. They've got a US exchange, but that's definitely FTX's strong point, that they were able to get into the US market and follow all the regulations and just get a lot of, through his connections, just start up quick and get a lot of success, right, for sure.
So that was it. So, like, okay, Jane Street Capital, just a normal Wall Street trading firm, started the list FTX thing, arbitraging the price of Bitcoin, turned into an exchange. That was successful, grew pretty quick. And so the next step is this Alameda thing. So I know you've been looking into this, Mel, with the team around that, but look, basically, what was Alameda? Like, what was this whole point of Alameda? Why did you need that?
Alameda Research, SBF founded that at the same time as FTX. They were just a bunch of like ostensibly they were rich kid. Whiz kid traders, very smart. They all had some sort of math degree from their colleges, and they basically just traded crypto on the side. So it was like a side project for FTX. And obviously, in hindsight, they were way too linked with FTX. And I don't know a whole lot about the Alameda research team. They're super young. They're super naive. They I know that the CEO Caroline Ellison, she was talking about how she loves to regularly use amphetamine at a time when she was managing billions and billions of dollars of other people's money. This is not something a smart person would do. Very naive.
Yeah, they definitely wouldn't say that publicly. Like, so this, for everyone listening, this girl Caroline, was the CEO of Alameda. Basically, Alameda Research was like a side thing to FTX. It's the same kind. It's the same folks involved. They all came, or most of them, from what we understand, came from Jane Street Capital, which is where SBF, Sam Bankman-Fried, came from, and basically his buddies at Jane Street Capital. And uh, it's complicated what its purpose was, but it was basically acted as a hedge fund for the exchange, taking money and trading, as Luke said. But it's important. The main thing is that it's the same people, close connections, and sort of a hedge fund attached to an exchange seems like, okay, what's going on here? Same people. Is there worries of overlap there? Where's the money coming from to make these trades? Are they, are they experienced enough to make trades? Are they doing well? But what's more juicy is just like who this girl Caroline is, because she features really importantly later, and Luke touched on it there. She is, as well as Curly Bop SBF, bit of a nerd. Nothing against nerds, but wait, nothing against nerds. I love nerds as much as the next person, but these are a bunch of relatively inexperienced kids who made a lot of like noise in interviews about taking a lot of risk, living the life. They were based out of the Bahamas. Luke's just mentioned they publicly saying they took amphetamines, and we're going to find out as well they were in relationships together. There was like 10 of them, polyamorous relationships. They were all having sex with each other in the office. There's a bunch of young kids, and there's no adult supervision or oversight or any professional kind of structure around this, as we're about to find out. But this girl Caroline, and Mel, you've been looking into her. I just, a lot has come out about her. It just blows your mind.
Yeah,
What have
so
you come across
here's
with
the
this girl?
thing.
Yeah.
A lot of people are like, oh no, Caroline is innocent. Oh no, Caroline, didn't do anything wrong. But so here's the thing in general terms. All these guys, they are more or less millennials. I don't have the exact years. I can't remember them right now, but they are like millennials from really privileged backgrounds. Maybe not millionaires, but
Mm.
parents who work in universities, who are involved in politics, in law, who went to really good universities, got really good jobs straight out of universities. Most of them very book smart. I mean, in general, I think that Caroline became really interesting to this whole thing. Not because she's like the only female, but because she allowed a lot of insight into what was going on within the team, and second because she's sort of like the poster child. I mean, in one time she said, oh yeah, no, we had no. So here's a story with Caroline. She was in Jane Street working as a trader. Very math oriented girl, very smart. Her parents are in mathematics too. Um, and the thing with Caroline was that she said in an interview, "Oh yeah, when we got out of Jane Street, we had no clue what we were
Yeah, I
doing."
saw that. That's
And
crazy.
she
Yeah.
and they're very much like, "Oh yeah, risk taking and blah 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 blah." And Caroline, maybe I don't know. I sort of get the vibe. Maybe she was the most conservative regarding risks. Maybe she was one of the most conservative
Wow.
ones.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
at the end, she ended up going with it. I mean, she mentions a lot in like interviews and stuff, like, oh no, yeah, I wish I would have been more of a risk taker earlier. She acts like university hadn't taught her anything. So I think that maybe at the beginning she was leaning more of at a conservative side of like risk taking and doing stupid shit. But anyway, I think that she sort of always had the chance, or like the probability, whatever you want to call it, to end up doing stupid shit. Because the thing is that she met I think that she met Sam on Jane Street,
Yeah,
if
that's
my
right.
memory
Yeah,
doesn't fail. But they really bonded over the fact that they had like this effective altruism
yeah, that's
thing.
important. Yeah,
And
yeah, we haven't mentioned that
here's
yet.
the
Yeah,
thing.
yeah,
Here's the thing about effective altruism. It's a philosophy that basically goes that you have to maximize what you give out to the world. So basically, if you're into effective altruism, what you will do is pick a degree or a career path based on how much that career path helps humanity in general, how much you can provide to humanity, what value you can give back to your society, community, etc. But it also goes along the lines of the more money you give to charity, the better. So a lot of people think of it as, okay, yeah, I need to make a lot of money so I can donate a lot of money to charities and stuff. It can end up being a pretty self-solving thing because it's all like, oh no, yeah, I'm just stealing money. I'm just like doing really weird stuff so I can make a lot of money and then give it out to charity and stuff.
yeah. My
So,
understanding of effective altruism, as somebody else put it really well, is like do whatever you can, any Machiavellian thing you like to get as much money as possible. Drive over your grandma if you need to, but only so that you can give it back to your grandma who might have a medical injury. You know, like it just seems like do whatever you can to get the money so that you can give it all back. Like it's just the most ludicrous thing. Like I mean, I don't know too much about it. I heard someone like describe it that way, but they bonded over this. Like it's just like they
yeah, which it's something really, I mean, it's a very privileged
yeah
Silicon Valley sort of perspective of things. Because if he spoke to someone else, they would probably be like, okay, no, yeah, I want to put a business and that way I give more jobs. It's not so, I mean, I think that the general view of people would be something more micro instead of going macro over it, like, oh no, yeah, I have to make a shitload of money and give it a lot and stuff. But anyway, they bonded over this and then they left Jane Street to Alameda. They didn't know what the fuck they were doing. And Caroline is always she's always very blunt about this, which is sort of scary, like, oh no, yeah, we didn't know
yeah. I
what we were
saw that in an
doing.
interview. I didn't. I think I saw that in an interview where she's just like sort of meekly in between two dudes, and she's just like or something. We didn't know what really we were doing. I don't think you need to, and you're like. Oh my God! These people would go on to manage like $10 billion of customer funds, and you're just like, what is going on? I can barely believe your eyes. But yeah, I saw that too. It's like, what? Yeah,
I mean, from what she says and from the stuff Alex had said, which I don't know, maybe it's going to be mentioned later. Alex, the other day I saw a tweet where they mentioned something that Sam said sort of recently. He was like, they spoke about the money laundering issues that are going on because of the whole Ukraine charity thing through
yeah.
crypto. And he was like, oh man, I wish I could have gotten away with that. Like, I think that at some point they were simply like, okay, what else we can do to keep taking money and
Oh my
uh,
God.
putting it in our bank accounts. So I honestly think that they were like a bunch of kids just
Is
trying to see how much money they could
Is there
make.
is this anything? But I mean,
In
folks
general.
listening, I want to get your guys' opinion on this, and then we probably should move on because like this is all about scene setting, who these guys are, how they started, what their interrelationships were. Is this anything else but a group of elite, rich, American, liberal, rich kids who are find themselves in a crypto wild west, Wild West kind of scenario, and they were like, right, we're going to make it even more Wild West. We don't care. We're not going to go to prison. We've got fucking parents who work at MIT and connected to the Democratic Party. So yeah, we'll just do whatever we want, and we'll live in Bahamas, having sex with each other, sleeping on bean bags, and having fun, and swimming in the ocean whenever we want, and we'll just and and we'll just do as we wish, and oh fuck it all. It just seems like ludicrous, and they're doing these interviews where we didn't have a clue, and Sam's now, and they're like washing their hands, and it just seems like this was destined to be what it was. If I look at it, it always was inevitable that this was going to go this way, because you rich kids do what they want in a Wild West scenario. Boom. Is there anything else but this? What do you guys think?
I mean, personally, I'll let Mel go first.
Yeah, go ahead, Mel.
Oh, thank you. I think that something that sort of describes the whole mentality of these guys, besides the whole effective altruism thing, is that at some point, it sort of became public that they were having that it was 10 people having sort of polyamorous relationships, and Caroline on her Tumblr wrote something along the lines that everyone should have their partners in a list, and it was something like it should work like an Imperial Chinese harem. In my opinion, that is sort of very telling. Between that and the effective altruism thing, that is very telling of how they probably view the world, like this whole of
right,
do whatever you want thing.
Yeah.
And this whole of there's the people who are in and the people who are out.
Right, yeah, it's the kind of inclusivity of it all, and we know best, and we can play pleasure seeking, and as long as we're having fun whilst others get hurt, who cares? And this kind of narcissism almost. That's the word that I was thinking as well, and I remember one thing, just to finish up on this girl Caroline, because it's driving me absolutely nuts, and it's probably driving the audience nuts just listening to this story of these rich kids, fucking incestual rich kids or whatever. But I did saw something she said on her Tumblr, that she finds attractive men who have so much power over all the world governments, and that's what SBF had, right? So again, this sexual, attractive, polyamorous, rich kids, inclusivity. They just I'm almost painting a picture in my own mind here, if not the audience's, of this group of kids who were probably at the end of a day of trading other people's money for profit that they were probably siphoning off to themselves in some regard, and sitting down for some whiskeys and cigars on their balcony overlooking the Bahamas, going, before they go off to have sex with each other, just we're top of the world, isn't it? We control the world's governments. The Democratic Party, the US, who we have everything under control. 10 kids in the Bahamas. It's almost can you write a Hollywood film about this? We've all seen Wolf of Wall Street. I feel like this goes well beyond it. It's just nuts.
Well beyond.
Yeah, and we haven't even heard half of it.
I'm surprised.
Yeah.
Right, I'm surprised that I didn't know a lot about these kids. I liked to look up SBF. I always knew he was a suspicious character, but looking up this for just this podcast, I was so surprised at how naive and how obviously stupid these people were. Very book smart, but when it comes to the world, super naive. They just got out of college and they were thrown into this golden chair position, and it's very obvious that's the case. And to think that these guys were controlling so much money, I'm just embarrassed that the institutional investors who lost so much money did. It's pretty clear that they're not the brightest people, and they're just gamblers, really, with other people's money at the end of the day.
Hey everyone, it's Alex. Just taking a second away from the chat to say thank you again for joining us on this journey. If you like what we're doing, please consider supporting us on our Patreon. We've put the link in the description. Times are very tough out there, so you can also help us in other ways, such as sharing or liking our content on social media, rating our podcast on iTunes, or just spreading the word about our project to your friends and networks. We've put all of these links in the description. Help us build the people system with blockchain. Now, let's get back to the chat.
So let's ask that question. If they were stupid or smart, naive, knew how the world was going on and was going to go, and were just reckless, and I haven't made up my mind about that. But let's ask this question. This moves us on, just this story along. Was there anyone, Luke, who spotted this FTX scam, that it was a scam, potential scam, house of cards waiting to fall down early? Was there anyone in the world of finance or crypto who spotted this early?
There definitely was, but the thing about crypto is that it is unregulated. We love crypto for this, but one of the disadvantages of this is you can run a fraudulent company like FTX and not have a whole lot of people know about this. We had two dudes. We had Terry Duffy that I can think of that was very vocal about how SBF and FTX was a scam and over-leveraged disaster waiting to happen. He even went to Congress and testified on this.
So who's this Terry Duffy guy? Just to give the audience a bit of an insight briefly into Terry Duffy. Who's that character?
Well, Terry Duffy is the CEO of CME, Chicago Mercantile Exchange, if I'm correct there. This is a traditional finance exchange. He's basically a competitor of SBF. And when SBF was trying to jump into the TradFi scene with with a crypto version of it, it was very much an attack on the traditional finance. So Terry Duffy definitely saw SBF as an enemy. And he has a couple of quotes recently which are also suspicious, because TradFi is very suspicious, just like crypto people. And he says that the time they met, he just said SBF offered to take him in and work together, and then the guy was like, "Well, give me some information, give me some of the basics of FTX." And SBF couldn't do that. In hindsight, we know why he wouldn't do that. But Terry assures us that he called him a fraud on the spot, said he's worth absolutely nothing. He said, a great quote he said was that I have more money in my right pocket than you are worth, you know.
I read that as well. It's that to be probably true.
Absolutely, it did, which is hilarious. Terry Duffy obviously is a suspicious character himself, so we don't know if that really happened. It sounds too good to be true.
Allegedly. Let's not cast him as person. Allegedly. Yeah.
Allegedly. We have to say allegedly for most of this podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And so he went to Congress testifying well in advance of all this that FTX is a disaster waiting to happen. And funnily enough, like he was what's the word, Alex? He was like lectured basically on how he doesn't know what he's talking about. And I remember Ro Khanna specifically in a video that didn't age well.
Ro Khanna being a Democratic senator in the U.S. Congress, pretty pro crypto kind of guy. Yep.
Pro crypto, we don't have any direct donations from SBF, but I mean, there's a lot of dark money involved, as we saw in an interview recently with SBF. Right. And I would say that if he's not getting donations from SBF, he was certainly looking to get some in the future. So he was very much against Terry Duffy when he was at the Congress meeting, and it didn't age well what he was saying. Terry was like being interrogated by this guy. In hindsight, we know Terry was 100% correct, and Ro Khanna made an idiot of himself. Other than that, we have Mark Cahodes, just a random short seller. Short sellers are guys who are just trying to find a company that's not legit and bet against them. And so he done a modicum of due diligence and decided this company is a complete fraud. So he was vocal about it months in advance too. But again, the thing about crypto is that they don't have to abide by regulations that traditional finance would. So there was a lot of smoke and a lot of people saying stuff, but there was no concrete evidence that this was a scam, because they don't have to produce many records. This is the wild west of crypto. We love it, but in this case, it definitely bit us in the bum.
Right, and
I don't know
yeah, go ahead, Mel.
what you guys I don't know what you guys think about it, but here's the thing. On one side, yes, it's the wild west of crypto and stuff, but at the same time, the crypto world in general, it's very delicate. It's sort of fragile. Like one click wrong and you fuck it all completely. Um, I don't know what you guys think, but I think that in a way, these kids were too book smart for their own good. I mean, it's like they never realized that this fortune they had and stuff was very up in the air until they made a mistake, or until someone realized that there was something wrong. I mean, I think that they basically thought they were so smart and so educated and so had such a good background that it was like, oh no, yeah, let's keep going. I mean, nothing will happen until it happened, because
Well,
again, it's the
well
wild west of crypto. It's very
yeah,
easy to make money, but also to lose
this
it.
is this is the question, and I guess like I'm probably personally leaning on the side of they knew exactly what they were doing. If not exactly, they knew kind of what they were doing broadly, and I think that I like there was one interview I watched. Luke and I spoke about this separately in the prep for this episode, and it basically was SBF was being interviewed by sort of like two other hedge fund guys, maybe from the traditional finance. You remember this, Luke? Where he basically described the box, the box analogy, right? And
The magic
the
box.
magic box. And he was essentially describing a Ponzi scheme with the analogy of a box. And his basic point was, and this was before it all collapsed, his basic point was, you know, we have a box and people see value in the box and they want to add money to the box. And then when other players see that the other people are valuing the box, they want to add more money to the box. So that is essentially that the box is valuable because there's money being put into it for no other reason but money's being put into it. That's essentially a Ponzi scheme for folks listening. But the insightful thing was not just that he described this Ponzi scheme as a box, but also that the podcast that he was on, the hosts were like, in a deadly serious voice, were like, I think that's funny that, you've just described your own business as a Ponzi scheme there, very seriously. Like, at not one point there did you describe any economic purpose. And SBF essentially kind of just giggled and laughed and said, you guys don't really get crypto. That's kind of a lot of what it is, and this is all new value and all. So so my point there is like, and we'll link that video in the show notes for folks whose minds are boggling. The listeners now who are like, "What? You can't be serious!" None of that happened. So I think like he did see what he was doing. And he was just hoping that the whole house of cards wouldn't fall, and that there was so many players, establishment players involved, that it couldn't fall. And Luke's described how Congress was bought off, apart from, not even apart from, I don't even know who was kicking up a fuss in Congress. I don't know anyone was. This one or two players, this guy Terry Duffy was kicking up a fuss, but everyone was bought off. And the only reason really why Terry Duffy would say a thing is because his business was an exchange, so he's a direct competitor, or else he might have been bought off, or else he might not have had an incentive to look really and call it out. His business was directly in trouble if SBF and FTX were successful. So this was just an accident or a crisis, a fucking whole house of cards waiting to happen as far as I see it. Everyone was bought off in one way or the other, turned a blind eye. But I think it was an elephant in the room, and just enough people were probably, yeah, it's wild, wild west crypto. Yeah, if it falls, may not fall. God, you keep building the house of cards up so much, maybe it won't fall, or we'll get out of it before it'll fall. But the thing is, FOMO was too much. The fear of missing out was too much. Nobody wanted to call it out.
100%. In 2021, who was game to sit there and say, no, it's about to fall? I've always been skeptical of the crypto rallies in 2017, I was super skeptical. In 2001, I was super skeptical. But would I short that? Hell no. You don't know when this is going to end. And at this time, in 2021, people were scared to bet against it. And you've got SBF buying media, buying politicians.
Yep.
This produced a lot of cover for him. And yeah, like no one wanted to bet against it. Now, I personally believe that SBF and these book smart whiz kids, they felt like it was just going to go up forever, and that what they were doing was okay, because if it keeps going up forever, everyone gets paid and everyone is happy.
Yeah.
But it was truly a speculative Ponzi, and it had to unravel at some point. And that's what happened. And I believe, right now they feel very stupid, which is good, because they should. But yeah, like I don't believe that I believe that they definitely knew that they were investing customer funds, and this was almost certainly illegal. But I also believe that they believed that this would all work out in the end, and everyone would make money, and everyone's happy.
Well, let's get on to, because the audience is probably listening, like that you've built up the background so much. Let's actually get on to how this house of cards fell. But I just want to say one last thing for the audience, so they get a full impression of just how big this FTX thing was. They had Tom Brady and Gisele Bündchen doing adverts. They had stadiums named after that. Like I can't remember the name of it. Was a baseball stadium, something FTX sponsored. This thing blew up so quick and so big you can barely believe it. It will be a case study in how a balloon gets so big then bursts. But this was massive. FTX was everywhere around the world. But yeah, let's if we can, just in the interest of time too, like let's get to the actual fallout, like the collapse, the house of cards coming down. Luke, do you want to start us off with that? What was, because it all happened as quick as you can imagine, right? It all fell down pretty quick. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that infamous week?
It happened super quick. It unraveled super fast. And I mean, on November 7th, well, actually, I should go back to the CoinDesk report.
Right.
CoinDesk reported maybe a week before the bankruptcy, the official bankruptcy, that it turns out that this big powerhouse, FTX, is pretty much a house of cards. Most of their assets are FTT, their own token. And this is super problematic, because if all your assets are one coin, which is actually at this time very illiquid, well, your assets don't mean anything. You can't sell them. They're super illiquid. So that was a big part of this. And then after that, you have CZ, the Binance owner, basically saying, yeah, that's not very good. Maybe Binance will sell all their FTT. This is huge. They own $2 billion worth of FTT, a super illiquid coin. And this was enough to create the crash.
Right. Yeah, so they basically created their own token to inflate their assets when there wasn't any value in that FTT. And yeah, they did all sorts of leverage loans to Alameda. That was what, with client funds, that's what built it up. And basically CZ, which is the CEO of Binance, coming off the CoinDesk article, basically said the game was up, wasn't it? And he sold his FTT. He announced in a tweet that he was going to do that. And we can get into the tweet back and forth a little bit that they had, but let's stick with what he did for now. And as soon as he put out that tweet that he was selling, the price crashed, right?
20%, within minutes. In traditional finance, this is overnight, but in crypto, it's within minutes. It crashed within minutes, and the funny thing is that Binance never actually sold any FTT. To this day, they've not sold any. It was just the mere mention that he would that was enough to just drive it down.
Oh, I didn't know
and
that.
CZ
okay.
knew this was happening. Well, when it was obvious that this was the end of
Right.
FTX, and this was super bad for the entire crypto ecosystem. CZ realizes, well, if I sell, I'm going to look like a catalyst for this. So he just said, all right, I'm not going to sell. He instructed all of his traders in Binance not to sell, to hold the bag and take the loss. So he didn't do anything, but of course, he also knew the effect of this was the end of FTX.
Right.
The conspiracy theorist in me wants to say that CoinDesk has to have some donations from Binance. Like, Binance is such a huge company right now, and I think they would have their finger in a lot of crypto media. So I like to believe that CZ basically had someone in FTX in his pocket. He's got the information. He threw that over at CoinDesk. CoinDesk publishes the article, and then on top of that, he throws in, "Yeah, this is looking like a house of cards. I'm gonna sell." And then this is what happened. On November 7th, we have a brilliant tweet from SBF. I'm trying to find it in my papers here because it was unfortunate for SBF, and it will be a huge problem for him in the future legally. He
Right.
basically says, this is the exact tweet. On 7th of November, this is one day before they declare bankruptcy and halted withdrawals. He says, FTX has enough to cover all client holdings.
Right.
We don't
Yeah.
invest client assets, even in treasuries. We have been processing all withdrawals and will continue to be.
Yeah, that turned out to just like the worst tweet ever, right? Because assets are fine or something like this is what I remember. Everything's kind of. He was presenting a picture before the bank run happened, or to fend off a bank run, that we're all good, everything's fine over here. And of course, it wasn't. And not to get into the weeds too much, we don't want to lose our audience, so let's keep it a little bit high level. But this guy, when this was happening, it all happened so quick, and he was saying everything's fine, whereas CZ was like, everything's not fine. And we should also mention, I guess, like, the element of why CZ did this, because a lot of people blame CZ, like, because a lot of people said as soon as you did that, you knew crypto would crash. So a lot of people blamed him. But partly his motive was that SBF and FTX were lobbying against the crypto industry, against competitors, therefore against Binance. He used that as partly his motivation, wasn't it? But I think broadly he'd had enough. He saw that FTX was over leveraged with its own token, and that the whole house, it just was built on sand basically. So. And whilst we should say, just to cut to the chase a little bit, keep this moving, whilst the bank run was happening, it's all was collapsing on FTX, CZ did kind of swoon in and say, we might buy FTX. And of course, what happened there, Luke?
Well, he said that he was interested in buying it, but all of this happened over the course of one single day.
Right.
He done maybe 10 hours of due diligence and figured out what the whole of the institutional investors couldn't do. He figured out this was just a scam, and it was not recoverable. And so, shortly after announcing that he was looking to buy it and save it, he announced, "No, I'm not, and this is too big to fix." And that was it.
There was no coming back from that, wasn't it? That was the end of days. And basically what he would have found was, after doing that due diligence, is what we've been talking about all along, is like FTX was using client funds, customer deposits, regular folk like me and Luke and whoever else, that was deposited on the exchange for people, normal people, working people, to just buy a bit of Bitcoin or buy a bit of this. And he was using all of that to loan it out to Alameda to trade on, and Alameda traders were losing money, and it was just a mess. You're not allowed to do that with client funds anyway, so it was just a big shit show, and they were over leveraged with their token that was worthless, and all of this came crashing down basically in a house of cards in 1 week. And it's just so interesting given all we've talked about with the industry players, and the fact that Binance, their main competitor, was the company that pulled the trigger. And it just all collapsed ENRON itself in a week. And it's just been carnage, right? So many people have lost money. We'll never get it back. We saw this week BlockFi. I know people who have lost a lot of money from savings on BlockFi. So it's just another case of everything, this whole ecosystem crumbling around this guy. Is this guy in prison? Tell us that. Like, tell the audience that, Luke. Surely people listening are thinking, what a disaster. This guy has. You've told. Surely this guy must be in an FBI cell somewhere. What's the latest with the SBF?
Well, he worked out beforehand that he definitely needs to pay off a lot of politicians, and that's definitely what he's hoping to be his get out of jail free card.
Right.
There was one good guy on Twitter. He's anonymous. His name is Mini Grogu, and he actually details how actually FTX they definitely didn't use client funds from traditional accounts, but with the margin accounts, in their terms and conditions, they basically said, yeah, we can trade, we can use your guys' funds to trade. So it's possible that, especially with his political backing, that he is able to say, look, that wasn't illegal. But when you look at the rest of it, FTX, it's so poorly run. And so clearly a scam and a fraud. He really cannot escape this. He's going to have to do some jail time. At the moment, he doesn't seem to think that's happening. We've seen an interview just come out in the last couple of days where he seems to be like he doesn't seem to think he's going to jail. He's even doing a New York Times conference in the next 2 days or so.
Oh, you're joking.
And this conference,
oh my God,
if you could believe it, this New York Times conference is about effective altruism and being nice guys. It's got Zelensky, the Ukrainian president. It has Mark Zuckerberg. It has another guy I can't remember. But this is like, just stunning, really, that you would have this guy on as a good guy. But definitely,
I was hoping the last guy on that conference panel might be Terry Duffy. Somehow I don't think so. Yeah.
No, it's another one of those guys that are saving the world and making billions of dollars while they're doing it, I believe.
But I'll tell you this, Luke, just on off the back of a while, I'll give you my opinion. And I've said this separately in the groups that I'm in, I do not think this guy will ever see the back of a door in a jail cell in his life. I just cannot say it. Maybe I'll be proved wrong. I just think he's so well connected. It'll top him off before he'll go to jail. I don't know. I just can't see it myself. Too many people connected to this guy. And let's touch on the fact that, as you've said, this guy's giving conferences. He's being protected by the media, the New York Times, everyone else have hit just absolutely crazy sort of articles to protect this guy, whitewashing him, getting him out of it. And let's just touch on this. We don't want to get into it too much because it's still allegations, denied allegations. But there has been some articles that have said that this guy had a link with the Ukrainian government and the war there. They had some sort of a partnership with them, and there's been allegations that that money was somehow being money laundered back to the Democratic Party. We know for a fact that SBF, because he's admitted to it everywhere, but also including this latest interview Luke mentioned 2 days ago, was donating to the Democratic Party. He paid a lot of money to the Democratic Party for the midterms. I think he had said he was going to give up to $1 billion for President Biden or the Democratic Party in 2024. This guy, big time. He was the second biggest donor to the Democrats. So there's just all sorts of fishy, crazy nonsense going around this. It's just ridiculous. And I think more and more will come out in time. Maybe we'll do a follow-up episode on this, but it goes deep. The tentacles are deep. How deep and where, we don't know, but it's clear that this guy is being protected everywhere. So I personally can't see the real. He's still in the Bahamas as we speak. He's being photographed. He's being photographed on a balcony, chilling, having a Coca-Cola. You know, it's just, oh my God. Tell us it. Let's because this is going to depress the life out of me. We'll have to do another follow-up episode on this. But let's ask this. Let's maybe end this episode, look on maybe a more philosophical note, wider contextual note for the crypto industry. What do you think? Do you think this is harmful to the crypto industry in the short term, but not in the long term? Where do you think we go from here?
I think this is definitely harmful because this playbook of FTX is a playbook that keeps happening over and over again. I think short term it's obviously harmful, but if we don't correct this, if we don't say no, enough of this, if we don't smarten up as a crypto community, this will just keep happening and we will never advance from where we are today. We really need to be smarter as a crypto community. Now, we talked earlier about that interview where he describes the magic box. You know, that magic box interview was almost a year ago now.
Right.
And he went, and the company fell down just a couple of weeks ago. Like, this is, let's be honest, this is embarrassing as a crypto community. We need to be smarter than this. We don't need solid proof. Once the CEO of one of the biggest exchanges describes his own coin and a lot of the crypto industry as an obvious Ponzi scheme, we need to say, okay, let's get out of that. Let's move somewhere else. But we didn't. And, you know, when you've got guys on YouTube like CopyZilla, you know, outing this 6 months ago, and we don't, and traditional finance don't, and you've got like massive players in traditional finance just figuring out a week ago, oh, I've lost, you know, $500 million here. This is pathetic. And the crypto industry, without regulation, which, let's be honest, we don't really want, we don't want traditional government regulation in there. That means we need to be smarter. And at the moment, we're not. We have to realize that if we don't want the government up our ass, we need to regulate ourselves in a smarter way. And at the moment, that does not happen.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm seeing like some people responding to this with some sense of more urgency than others. Those who are a little less urgent are maybe saying, "Oh, it's part of. I mean, we're building a new, you know, sort of financial system coming out of the old. Of course, there's going to be massive bumps like this. What do you expect? We as long as we learn from it, but it's inevitable this kind of thing happens." And part of me kind of agrees with that, but I also think if that doesn't follow up with a sense of real, okay, fuck, we need to do something about it, then it's kind of hollow words. And I kind of point to the CEO of Binance, who's such a central player in all of this, who I think is leading the way in how crypto needs to regulate itself instead of government coming in, because nobody wants that. Because that will lead to tyranny, as Luke says. But so you see companies now like Binance and other crypto players who are making transparent their reserves. So here's what we have, a bit more transparency around what reserves they have. I think Binance also donated $2 billion of its own token or something to Crypto Recovery Initiative. Who knows how that will go? I guess I find it a bit queasy when another centralized exchange takes such a big play in the crypto industry. The whole thing, what this comes down to, is all about crypto is about decentralization, not about decentralization. And okay, there might be bumps as we come out of the old system, but we have to learn the right lessons. And when anything gets too big, old systems involve too much, we all should be going, okay, that's a recipe for disaster. So I think DeFi needs to play a big part, and just more bottom-up solutions. What that looks like, who the hell knows? But maybe, I don't know. What do you think? Any last thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think crypto needs to find crypto solutions to this. The Bitcoin works on a Merkle tree, and I won't even try to describe what a Merkle tree is because you get into super technical stuff, and I'm just going to ruin it. But basically, a Merkle tree, for example, could really help you with the voting system. What you could do, you could all vote online for your president. And at the end of the vote, you would be able to go in and check your specific vote and make sure it was counted as your vote, the correct vote. This is something a Merkle tree does. Now, you can take this to here. You can take it to, hey, I have funds in FTX. I want to make sure they're there and they're not being used by some 27-year-old speed addict to gamble in some ridiculous shitcoin. So That's a great solution right up. Like Merkle trees, we want to be able to know our funds are there. There's no bullshit happening. This is a simple crypto solution that we should really all be asking for. Crypto solution, not a big old government coming in there and saying, hold on, you got to pay us this much money and we're going to go do this and this, and here's a bunch of regulations that are going to cap you at the knee.
Right.
This is a simple crypto solution. As far as CZ goes, I don't know why he's not even saying something like that. And his solution at the moment seems like a pretty shitty band-aid, to be honest. Let me play skeptic here, Alex. Like,
sure.
He promised $2 billion, but the BlockFi bankruptcy, that's a $10 billion liability. So the $2 billion, that's a fifth of BlockFi. And as we know, there's a bunch more that are dropping every single day. What we don't need to... Like, actually, CZ even says at one point, because, 6 months ago when everything was crashing and Celsius was going down, CZ said of SBF's attempted rescues, he says, don't perpetuate bad companies, let them fail. And 6 months later, CZ is basically trying to perpetuate bad companies. I don't think the idea is, hey, you're bankrupt, let's help you out. I think the idea is to make sure there's no more bankruptcies.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's band-aids and all this after the fact it's just not good enough. And I agree, we should be like finding why this happens and not letting it happen in the first place. And it's just inexcusable for like these powerful, centralized this, that, or the other. And this isn't, for anyone listening, this isn't the first big thing that's happened this year. We've had Luna fail, we've had you name it, Voyager, almost. It's just, what is Celsius? What's next? BlockFi now has went down. I mean, folks listening who want decentralization, and that is the original dream of crypto, it's not going to be good enough for another centralized exchange who is less bad than someone else or whatever, who swoons in and saves the day. These folks aren't altruistic. You don't run a big business like this out of altruism. I'm sure Binance possibly have done some shady stuff. I don't know, whatever. I don't know. Who knows? But they're centralized anyway. That is not what we want to build. So anyone who's got like, oh, he'll save us or this, that, or the other, no. We're building this world. It's bottom up for a reason, because we know the current system always leads to centralization and always leads to failure and monopoly. So get that out of your minds. And I'm encouraged by some of the signs I see in crypto, but I don't think we've learned enough of the lessons enough. And maybe it's going to take some more of this to happen before we suddenly, 5 years down the line, do it properly. But anyway, we'll ramble on forever. We'll maybe have to come back. And I think this story isn't going away, is it, Luke? So it's just like... what else is going to fall from the tree when you shake? You turn SBF upside down, and who else falls out of these pockets? So I think as a fraud squad here on Blockchange, we'll come back to this, and we'll have to follow up with the audience about what's next, because I'm sure everyone listening is like, this is the craziest thing since Luna, maybe, or something else. But yeah, so
it's up there.
It's up there, right? And oh my god, it just gets crazier and crazier. But yeah, let's end it there. Thanks everyone for listening. Thanks, Luke, for joining. Mel's dropped off. She's had to go and look after the dogs. For the next one, we're going to do CBDCs. That's totalitarian fascism right there. Oh my god. And what better time to do it? I'm sure you've seen, Luke. Everyone's announcing. I saw Indonesia is going to launch its CBDC, or said something, put out a tweet that it's going to do this. Seems like this is the week where a lot of people central banks are announcing CBDCs. So that's the next step, folks. What a prescient time to look at that. That's complete dystopia. Luke will be back for that. The other guys will be back for that. I think we'll all be there. So looking forward to covering that stuff. So, but yeah, Luke, thanks for joining, and we got both head off because we want to watch the Argentina match, as we said at the start. But yeah, thanks for joining, Luke, and yeah, everyone.
Thanks for having us, mate.
Yeah, thanks everyone for listening, and yeah, we'll see you on the next one. Take care.
Ciao.
Ciao.